Okay, Dr. Vermani, what is perfectionism and where does it stem from?
Okay, so perfectionism is essentially the pursuit of, trying to be flawless. Many of us kind of get into these patterns where we have impossibly high standards for ourselves. And so perfectionism is your standard for yourself that is at the highest level, where we sometimes then get to a place where we reject anything that is not ideal for ourselves. And we start labeling those things that are less than ideal as flawed or imperfect or not good enough. And this tendency to strive for excellence, leads us to a place where we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and there's a lot of mind, body, and symptoms of anxiety, depression, not feeling good enough, low self-esteem that can come and arise from this, bombarded notion of being perfect in today's world and needing to be perfect in order to be worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of being, good enough.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
today's social media world, we end up like being even fed into that more a little bit, because the more we have our own standard of perfectionism, sometimes when we're comparing our life to others, we keep raising the bar to having a different standard of what success, beauty, work ethics, perfectionism with, writing or skill set comes in. And we just keep raising the bar and never accepting ourselves to be authentic beings. Instead, need to have this high standard that I have to be the best at everything in order for me to be good enough.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned social media, right? So like that's obviously, a major component as to why people have, such high standards. But what are like the like other reasons that people fall into this mindset of like wanting to be flawless and having such high standards to the point where it can, really lead to burnout. It can lead to a lot of like mental issues as well, right? So like where does it stem from, like outside of social media? Like that mindset, like where does it come from?
So it starts as early as our childhood. Perfectionism begins early in childhood, where we adopt the behaviors and the perspectives of our role models. Think about 0 to 10, you're not born in that world, you're born in a household. The way mom and dad love each other is love. The way mom and dad fight is conflict resolution. Mom's a clean freak, cleaning's a value. Dad works a lot, work's a value. We develop ethics of what we think we need to do to succeed, to be good partners, to be good parents, to be good, colleagues or academics. And so initially it starts with mom and dad. And then as we're growing, we have other modeled behavior individuals in our lives, like grandparents or siblings or aunts and uncles, or, the school system you go to, the socioeconomic status, the first world, wherever you're born and what your environment, your peers, your media, your influences are around you, all of that shape your blueprint, as I call it. And so if we had perfectionistic parents or extended family members, teachers, coaches, maybe even your dance teacher that your parents put you on the weekend to, if you have people with these
Yeah.
standards, they're shaping you, they're modeling you, and
Hmm.
they're giving you this standard of no matter how good you do it, you can do it better. Right? My dad used to say this. He used to be like, math. My dad was a mathematician.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Say math is the only subject you can get 100% in. And for you to get less than 100, that's just not right, because that's the one subject you can get 100%. It's plain and simple, objective. One plus one is two. But every other subject you can have like room for error because of the person who's marking it. So
Yeah.
when you have that standard, then you're taught to yourself, I have to always get 100%. And so this is role modeling. And sometimes you always feel I'm not good enough unless I'm getting that A plus plus. And our role models don't mean to
Hmm.
hurt us or harm us, but they're trying to pass on strong work ethics or values that maybe they feel they missed or they had, and they're just repeating the cycle. And they're trying to facilitate, I want you to do the best for your life so that you have a successful life ahead. But they don't realize that pressure can also lead you to a path of a lot of anxiety, self doubt, not feeling good enough, and constantly overworking, because you can always be better. And that standard never is really at a bar that is enough. Just like money and other things, we sometimes, once we get there, we're like, oh, I can do a little bit more. You get to that academic, I can do a little bit more. And so from an early age, children, strive for high marks, being a better athletic, being good behavior, behaving well, getting in your group to be liked by others, to be accepted by others. And then you might, as you grow up, have demanding bosses, and you might have careers where you are
Mm.
competing with other people in school. I was at U of T, and U of T felt like a competitive place where, I remember people hiding books at one point, and like I felt like, wow, we're lining each other up to kind of show each other that I'm better than you, or I'm smarter than you, or I was faster than you. And,
Yeah.
it makes us start getting into this competition with ourselves, but competition with others. Self discipline, ambition, high standards, they sound like good things that can motivate us and can enhance our performance and accomplishments. But when the going gets tough, if we don't balance self care, self love, healthy living, it can get us in trouble with anxiety, depression, self judgment, criticism, unhappiness, seeking validation from others, and never feeling good enough.
Got it. Yeah. So obviously, it seems like the whole main idea comes down to the people around you, right? And then that main foundation normally gets set by your family, like whether it's your parents or your siblings, your grandparents, like just like the family culture, for example, right?
A family has
Now,
a big part to it, but it's also the
yeah.
environment. Like I have some patients who tell me they grew up in a military background where their parents moved around a lot. But again, if a
Uh-huh.
parent was in a military background, there was a rigid background of black and white thinking, of living with a schedule and a routine and a structure. Or if you had parents with OCD or something of their own perfectionism, as an academic out there, they may be instilling values in their kids to also live by a routine of structure, which is healthy to some degree, but under a lot of pressure it can also be unhealthy. And so, it's not just the parents, it sometimes is the culture, the school system, the country you're in, as well as sometimes the gated community, like I said, with military people.
Got it. Okay, so would you say like the main thing that gets imposed on people that really strive to be as perfect as possible is like rules and really high standards, right? And just not having like any tolerance for anything that's, I guess, average or subpar.
Yeah.
Got
That's
it. Okay.
it. But it is,
Hmm.
it is about thoughts, and it's about also how we put pressure on ourselves to be. When you said, the concept of perfectionism for each person is individualistic. Everybody's
Yeah.
different, right?
Got it. Okay. Now, how do you know like what standards are too high? Because oftentimes, they have this saying that you often fall to your standards, right? Like if you have extremely low standards, like sometimes you just can't get motivated and then you never actually maximize your potential, which obviously, it's not going to be the best for you, but you're also not helping the world as well as you could be. You know what I mean? So like how do you find that healthy standard to the point where it's not like, putting too much pressure on you, but at the same time it's healthy and actually lets you move forward in life. You know what I mean?
So we can talk about the perfectionistic striving.
Strivings and concerns. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And so, that's about perfectionistic strivings is about, unattainable or unusually high standards that we place on ourselves. These are standards that we place. Like you said, it's individualistic, it's subjective, and we keep these standards to push ourselves a little further. So keep us motivated, focused, and on track so that we can reach goals. Perfectionistic strivings compel us to do our best and support productivity. However, perfectionistic concerns, on the other hand, are negative thoughts, negative self limiting beliefs, negative projections, or concepts we hold on to about our ability to meet and exceed high standards. That I need to have this in order to be good enough. This list of perfectionistic concerns, can be a long one, like fear of failure, negative judgments of
Mm.
others, negative judgments
Yeah.
of yourself, fears of inadequacy, not being enough, negative outcomes related to our inability to actually live up to these high standards we give ourselves. Many of us are hard on ourselves because we feel there's consequences if we're not. And so when we hold ourselves to a perfectionistic standard, we're also pushing ourselves really, really hard because we feel like if I don't do it at this level, I'm not going to make the cut. I'm not going to be
Hmm.
enough. Everybody else is going to surpass me. I won't get that job. I won't get that school. admission I won't get that partner, I won't get that life that's going to make me secure and safe in the future.
Got it. Okay, so basically what you're saying is that these perfectionist concerns really comes down to like tying your self-image to these really high goals that you have in mind, right? And then it's like if you don't achieve these goals, like you kind of fall apart on the inside, right? And then just having that healthy striving is doing your best and just kind of moving forward at that healthy level, but you're not attaching again your self-image to the results and like, for example, being like a multi-billionaire or something like that, right?
You know,
Now,
you said
yeah, mhm.
standards are individualistic, it's subjective. Like we
Got it.
have to
Okay.
realize we live in a world out there that is constantly bombarding us with social media, with colleagues and professionals and mentors. We're constantly being influenced by others. It is an individual journey amongst a collective society. So what we need to realize is that you're not born coming up with your concept of perfectionism. You're learning it from somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether mom and dad not having perfectionistic ethics and you're like, I'm going to be the opposite, I'm going to give myself standards, or it's you having high, you know, pressure parents that you're following in their footsteps. And so many of us need to kind of challenge the concept of where it comes from and then look at individually, what is healthy for me. And that healthy will come from you having consequences from sometimes putting a lot of pressure on yourselves. But the key is this: it's not only the influences around you, it's also what you define as successful. Now, when you say attachment, with or without success, I'm still worthy of love. If you're in a place of neutrality, when you're neutral about things, things always work out. But when I really, really need it, then I burn out because I'm holding on so tight. I really, really push myself hard. And when I'm really, really pushing away, resting, not, taking care of myself, again, I'm also avoiding things coming to me that balance me out. So I find whatever we resist will persist as a problem. Many of us are resisting balance, self care, bringing in new perspectives that might make me see the world differently because we come up with a rule book that this means success. And so it's us
Hmm.
projecting this means success, this means good enough, this means, I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I'm capable, my mom and dad will be proud of me. Think about where we learned some of these standards from. Mom says good girl, and you feel like a good girl. External validating internal. So that external validating internal leads me to a place where let me go get another pat on the back now. And then I keep looking for people to validate me. The higher I bring up my standards, the more I feel like I'm getting validation. But that's external validating internal. Many of us need to learn how to
Hmm.
fill our own bucket and be like, with or without success, I'm good enough. With or without, dressing well every day, I'm good enough. With or without that partner in my life, I'm good enough. With or without making $1 million, I'm good enough. Like there's got to be a sense of you being worthy and happy in yourself as you are, with or without these perfect standards. I like to strive for perfectionism, but if one day I'm too tired and I didn't wash the dishes and I didn't get work done, I'm still worthy of love. There's got to be this
Hmm.
concept of you being compassionate with yourself to let the standards down. It's okay to aim for it, but it's not okay to pressure yourself to have to attain it in order to be good enough.
Hmm. Now, what if someone were to say, like, for example, if you look at people that do achieve like really great things in life, right? And then if like, for example, if you look at South Asian culture or like Chinese culture or like Japanese culture, I'm not trying to make this about like ethnicity and stuff like that, but in general, those cultures are known for really creating highly successful, like really ambitious people, right? But at the same time, those exact same cultures have like a culture that's built on being perfect, so how do you balance that idea of getting those same type of results
Mhm.
without the unhealthy factor? Because like one might argue it's hard to get one without the other, you know what I mean?
So here's,
So
I
yeah.
don't believe those cultures are trying to get perfect. What those
Hmm.
cultures are trying to do are trying to keep us motivated, focused, and on track. So that's
Hmm.
different than being perfect, right? Like I think a lot of immigrant parents, and my parents are immigrants. I'm Indian by background, and deep down inside, I don't think my parents wanted me perfect. They wanted me to have motivation, focus, drive, and to stay on track that will get me somewhere that would maybe align to success. And what is success for many immigrant parents? Sustaining your livelihood, right? Safety in money, safety in livelihood, where you can be self-sufficient, where mom and dad someday will pass away and you can continue to survive without them. So they don't mean it to say, I need you perfect for me to love you.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want you to have certain standards in place that line you up for success in the future, where you're self-sufficient when they're not around to take care of you. Because as children,
Hmm.
we rely on our parents for survival, and a parent's nightmare is that you're not able to rely on yourself for survival, and they have to continue to take care of you, where if they're gone tomorrow, you can't take care of yourself. And so I don't think
Hmm.
it comes from a perfectionistic standard. It comes
Really?
from a fear of lack of survival, a fear of not being good enough, a fear of not getting that job or getting into school. So we push you harder so that you can get into school. We push you harder so you can get that job and compete with others. So it's more coming from a fear of survival. Like, you need to have high standards in order for you to get into that school or to get that job or to be good enough to marry or to, make enough money to buy a house. So if you think about it that way, some of those cultures you're talking about, they don't mean to put pressure for you to be perfect. They're trying to put
Hmm.
pressure on you to have a standard and a work ethic that will get you to surpass others in competition line.
Got it. Yeah. So, for example, if let's say you have some parents that were watching this, right? And then again, they want to also impose those same standards on their kid and make sure that, hey, this kid actually is able to stand on their own feet and can survive without, being in a place of like deprivation, right? Because again, like for example, if you come from South Asia, oftentimes the only way to really prosper is through like being highly educated and stuff like that, right? So with that mindset comes those standards. But how do they impose those standards without the unhealthy aspect of it? Because again, even though it's not their intention, oftentimes it can become really unhealthy, right? So like, how do you find that balance? If you had to say, I mean, I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but how do you find that healthy balance?
So I don't think any parent, means to do bad when they, bring you into the world. What's happening is automatically just the culture and the fabric of life is happiness and sorrow is a series of experiences. And so we do the best we can with what we know. And many of us are just repeating cycles from our parents' teachings or what we thought worked for us. And now we're passing it on to you. And don't get me wrong, times are changing.
It is, yeah.
I'm thing nowadays with AI and this and that. Like, our parents from my generation can't teach me about AI. They didn't even have that. I didn't have a cell phone or a laptop growing up in university. I used to go to internet
Really?
cafes. It was a different time for me. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't get a laptop till my master's was almost over.
Wow.
I was in internet cafes, which I don't even know if are around anymore. So like, it's a different time even for me, but I'm still
Yeah.
in between age where I can learn on what the new trends are. And so catch up. My parents wouldn't know what to do with that. They're in a totally different age bracket. And so understand, people are doing the best they can with what they know. And when you're trying to help people, you're not trying to hurt them. But the standards of hurt and harm come when your symptoms get louder and louder and you're still doing the same behavior. So, for example, I always tell people, table with three lights. Any problem in life you can put on this table, it will manifest in three
Mm.
distinct ways in your life. So problems could be, work problems, money problems, perfectionism. It could be anxiety disorders. It could be caregiver burnout. It could be, alcohol, drugs use. It could be self-esteem issues. It could be imposter syndrome. The list goes on. Relationship problems. It shows up in three ways and manifests in your life three ways. Every problem will manifest, one, through physical or physiological symptoms: headaches, muscle aches, abdominal distress, constipation, diarrhea, heart palpitations, crying, sensitivity, irritability, angry outbursts, eating too much, eating too little, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, restlessness, panic attacks, extreme fatigue, anything that comes with your body. The second way things show up in your life is cognitive, negative thoughts. 0 to 10, you're not born in that world. You're born in a household. The way mom and dad love each other is love. The way mom and dad fight is conflict resolution. You learn values from your parents. Mom's a clean freak, cleaning's a value. Dad works a lot, work's a value. These are thoughts about you, your world, men, women, relationships, success, money, security, safety. And then as
Yeah.
you grow, you go to school and you have life as a series of experiences until you judge your experiences as positive or negative. Anything you judge as negative inconveniences you. So one reason why we don't lower our standard on perfectionism is, what if I don't make the cut? If I lower my standard and I sleep properly, I take care of myself, well, what if that neighbor of mine beats me in the lineup of that job, or beats me in the lineup of getting into school? So we have thoughts in our life of, I have to be number one in order to excel, because I have to beat other people in competition with me. And so the third way is behaviorally. All problems manifest in physical symptoms, negative thoughts, and negative behaviors. The negative behaviors are eating too much, eating too little, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, avoidance, procrastination, perfectionism, being hard on ourselves, hard on others, putting up with abuse, not getting the help you need for medical attention, not resting, not taking care of your stress levels, gambling, shopping addictions, alcohol and drugs, food addictions. The list goes on. The three of these keep your problems standing in life. You got to start addressing your symptoms. If your perfectionism is that hard on you, you're going to find you have extreme physical symptoms in your body. You're going to have negative thoughts racing in your head if you drop the standard, and you're going to have negative behaviors as consequences, such as procrastination, fear of failure, dropping out of school, burning out. You're going to have consequences. So our body is fascinating. The symptoms will get louder and louder if your standards of perfectionism are above and beyond what is healthy for you. So what you're really asking me is, it's one thing to set a goal of being perfect. I try, but I'm okay with letting my standards go in order to be healthy. But if you're really someone driven by perfectionism, and you might even have like obsessive compulsive tendencies where you're really pushing yourself hard, there's going to be a body wear and tear. There's going to be a lot of negative thoughts being hard on you if you drop the standard. And there's going to be physiological or consequences in your lifestyle by dropping that standard. All human symptoms have a purpose. All human behaviors have a purpose. Our perfectionism sometimes is self-medicating anxiety or depression disorders too.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting.
Like
So pretty
parents,
much, sorry. Hey, go ahead.
parents need
Yeah.
to understand, what is the purpose of my behavior to teach this person? And the parents have to look inside themselves. Am I modeling behaviors that are coming from anxiety and depression? Or am I modeling behaviors from a healthy standard of, listen, we want to aim for that A. But if you get a B or a C,
Yeah.
that's fine, right? Like, are we making it easy on the kid to know that that standard isn't the be all end all, and should come not at the health cost of yourself or the mental capacity of you having anxiety disorders and fear to go to school? What we need to understand is, when is perfectionism a striving and a goal? And when is it something that is actually hindering your day-to-day performance, where now you can't sleep properly, you can't eat properly, you're highly stressed out, you're then maybe self-medicating with drugs and alcohol or procrastination, and now it's turning into a problem versus a motivating, aspirational striving.
Got it.
Parents,
Got it.
we need to first be aware of our symptoms, because when you're in pain, you're spilling around to others. If my own perfectionism is so out of control in me, I have no choice but to model it to my children. But if I'm in a place of health and I'm working on my own standards to be like, I can aim for a good standard, but even if I drop it a bit, or if I'm not able to maintain it, I'm okay. I'm still worthy. I'm still good enough. If I have compassion and love for myself to drop the standard, then I can role model that for my children. So my biggest advice for parents is go inwards and take a look at yourself. What are you modeling? What are you striving to teach your kids? And are you motivating them by saying this is a standard and a goal that we want? Or are you pushing them that anything less than this is not enough? And that pushing means you get your identity from it. And if you feel like, I'm not good enough getting less or doing less, that will put a lot of pressure on yourself. And the one thing I've learned in my own journey as a personal story is, I remember my PhD year, one of my panel of supervisors pulled me aside and said, Monica, can I give you some advice? I've learned about you in your PhD year and your master's, and I'd like to give you a piece of advice. And said, sure. And he said, Monica, write your thesis with half the pressure you put on yourself than you do on any other paper and assignment that you've done. And I said, what? It's my thesis. And he's like, I know, but you try to make it so good. And one reason why many thesis people do not graduate in time is they put so much pressure to make it perfect that it ends up dragging their years longer in their doctoral student level because they're trying to make it perfect. And the best people need to realize that the moment I publish this paper, the moment I put this out there, in 30 seconds to 40 seconds, somebody new is going to come in and revamp it and put a new, paper out there. So realize that you're doing the best you can with what you know. And 30 minutes later, somebody's going to come out with a better version of it, maybe. Humble yourself to know that you're constantly evolving and growing. And instead of putting pressure to make it perfect, put pressure on doing your best and getting it out. Some people are trying so hard to be perfect that they never actually materialize to get things out and never finish the projects they start. And that's a worse problem, where you start a bunch of things and are not able to finish it. Perfectionism can put so much pressure that you sometimes never accomplish to finish things.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So pretty much
mean well, like I said, it's not blaming and shaming our parents. It's about them looking inward to say, what am I modeling? And then us also, even if we had parents that didn't work on themselves, to at some point as a young adult or an adult say, I'm going to correct and change the pattern that I was brought up by. My mom used to say, hard work doesn't kill you. And that was a motivating factor. But that also put a work ethic in my head of like, I need to work hard and I need to do things a certain way. My mom's work might have not killed her because of the type of job she had, but mine could have. So at some point I had to reevaluate as an adult saying, hard work doesn't kill you is my mom's concept, not mine. And as me, I'm going to say, I got to work smart. I got to work healthy. The more I take care of me, the better I'm going to be for others. And so instead of being perfect, I strive for perfectionism in some areas, but even if I'm not, it's good enough. And learning to ease up on yourself is about compassion. Compassion has to come in if you want it not to feel like pressure. Pressure is where the anxiety comes in. The self-doubt comes in. The fears of failure come in. The fears of not being good enough come in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically it just really comes down to healing oneself, right? Because as you spoke about, sometimes, parents, they indirectly or unknowingly just impose their, for example, fear of failure, their own insecurities, their own, maybe lack of belief, or sometimes their desire for status. Like they can kind of impose that onto their kids, even if it's not a conscious thing that's going on, right? So oftentimes if you heal yourself, like that should automatically lead to, obviously trying to encourage your kids to have, big goals, but focusing more on process and not getting too attached to the outcome and having like an unhealthy relationship with that, right? So like, I guess that's the whole main idea, to kind of break the family cycle, from just constantly getting passed down from like one generation after one generation onto another, right?
You can have categories, right? Like I think sometimes we need to learn how to ease up on ourselves. Many of us put these high standards thinking that the high standards lead to success. But if the high standards lead into burnout, addictions, sleep deprivation, not liking yourself and procrastination and beating yourself up for not getting things done, is that a high standard that's linking you to success? Success really comes from balance, and the balancing act is about having a work ethic that comes hand in hand with self-care. Stress is when your activity level surpasses your energy level. Activity is mental and physical. If you're putting too much pressure here, you're going to have symptoms, and the stress level is high. So you have two options: bring down activity, which we can only do so much. We got to work, we got to live, we got to go to school. And so the next option is bringing up energy levels. The four sources of energy levels are just the basics: eating well, so that the food sustains my body, so that I can push myself longer to be a little bit more perfectionistic. Sleep, the quality of sleep you have, don't sacrifice it to be perfect. Realize that your standards of work are better when you can sleep properly because you're refreshed and renewed and able to perform well. Third one is exercise and breathing. Many of us who are anxious fuel self-doubt. Anxiety is when you're breathing short and shallow breaths. It just keeps you up and down, ruminating, racing in your head. Just even breathing properly, exercising, getting a belly breath, you ground yourself to think clearly of what is needed versus what I want to do. I might want to be perfect, but what do I need to get done to get this out? Sometimes that perfectionism, if you hold on to that standard, you keep revising your work over and over and you never get other aspects of your work done, or you're not able to eat properly or sleep properly. Look at the sacrifice. And the fourth one is a calm state of mind. You'll have a calmer state of mind if you're easier on yourself to drop that standard a bit instead of feeling like I have to do it this way. I'm driven to do it this way. I don't feel comfortable if I let it go. Challenge the thought that less than means I'm sacrificing my quality. Sometimes, learning to drop the perfectionism scale to be good enough is about having compassion that I'm not going to sacrifice my health and well-being. Work is just one aspect of your life. Being a good friend, being a family member, being good to yourself, hobbies and interests. We're here to enjoy a world of form. Are you enjoying life? Or are you putting pressure for it to be perfect all the time? And that pressure takes away joy, and joy takes away gratitude. It all kind of leads to a negative cycle. And so perfectionism sometimes can get you into an anxious loop, but also a negative loop of self-deprivation, self-criticism, not feeling good enough, not feeling capable, not meeting up to other people's standards, and constantly in that place of comparison to others versus staying in your lane and just enjoying life. We're not here to sacrifice joy. And trust me, when we put so much pressure on ourselves, the anxiety that you put trying to be perfect at everything, the way you look, the way you feel, a perfect mom, a perfect dad, a perfect colleague, those standards of perfectionism burn you out because they're bottomless pits. You can always do more people pleasing. You can always do better in your academics. You can always do better at work. You can always make more money. You can always look better. It's burning you out by trying to do everything perfect. And the older you get, the more roles you play. The more roles you play, the more standards of perfectionism in every area fall in. And you get into an area of sickness and illness and anxiety, self-doubt, and sometimes just giving up.
Yeah, like that's a lot of information on how it can really backfire, right? Because as we know, if you're like a perfectionist, like you want to be as excellent as possible, but like that actually doesn't really work in your favor because like now you're working backwards and you're compromising yourself. You're not actually, again, as you mentioned, putting out the output needed to get that excellence that you're looking for, right? Which is it's somewhat like a paradox because like to I guess chase excellence and to actually achieve excellence, you kind of have to drop your standards a bit and give yourself room to make mistakes and not be so rigid with how you approach I guess life in general.
Excellence comes with sacrifice to some degree, tunnel focus. So I guess the key is, that tunnel focus to make one thing perfect. What are you sacrificing in the process? And is the sacrifice worth your health, your sanity, your calm state of mind, your sleep patterns? And so deep down inside, we live in a world where time is money. And so a perfect product sounds great. But you know what? I think I'll take good enough instead of needing to be perfect, because good enough means I slept well, I ate well, I took care of me, I played with my kids, I played with my pet, I was able to enjoy the sunshine. We're missing out on life sometimes with these high standards of perfectionism. We're making it about doing, and we're not human doers, we're human beings. Learning to be doesn't come with a standard of perfect. In fact, I find it fascinating. One half of my body is not equal to the other. If you look at your eyes and your body, like one half of my body is not equal to the other. We were made in imperfection so that we get comfortable not being perfect. And instead we strive.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All the time. Like I was like, you were made imperfect so that you can get comfortable, not needing things perfect. And then all we do is strive to be perfect. And yes, it
Yeah.
does backfire. You miss deadlines, you put too much focus, hyper focus on one area, the other areas drop. You end up judging yourself more harshly if you don't get something done the way you would like. And you're your worst critic. You could deliver something beautifully, and if you missed one line, you're hard on yourself and you take away the gratitude and pleasure of something working out because you felt you missed out a detail. We're our worst critics, and we need to learn how to be kinder, loving, more compassionate, and sometimes just good job, even if it wasn't perfect. And I
Hmm.
think what we need to realize is challenging the concept of perfection is our job for us to be healthy. Do you want to be perfect or you want to be healthy? And sometimes you can have a bit of both if you can learn how to bring in the dance of perfectionism. It's okay to have the goal of having perfect standards or high standards for yourself, but with or without me reaching that, I'm okay at this level. I'm okay with it coming out at this pace. Learn to give yourself permission that those high standards come with a rigidity, and we need to learn how to be fluid in life. We need to how to be flexible in life. If you're a hardcore perfectionist, you can't be rigid with yourself. You can't be fluid with yourself. You're always rigid, right? And
Hmm.
that will lead into burnout. Today, burnout is a hot word because perfectionism on a maladaptive front means social anxiety. We worry about what people think of us. We worry about embarrassing ourselves. We worry about not being good enough. We have depression because we put such high standards that we feel like we cannot meet. We also have chronic stress in our body and our mind because we're sacrificing food, sleep, exercise, and breathing in a calm state of mind by fretting over things need to be perfect. And sometimes we're
Hmm.
driving our loved ones mad. A perfectionistic mom might need the house always clean or need work ethics and chores always done. And it might take away from play and joy and fun. I always say a kept home is an unlived life. It doesn't mean my house is messy, but it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. I'm living life fully, and that means there might be dishes in the sink or there might be laundry
Hmm.
that's piled up. I'm still enjoying life. Learn to have a standard that fits health, wellness, and balance. Compassion and being human is to err. We don't have to be perfect. We have to be real.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, Dr. Vermani, so obviously, we've been talking about, let's say, mostly the negative that comes with, chasing perfectionism, right? Or just being a perfectionist. Now, in your article, you also talk about how there have been studies that also indicate some, good elements or like some elements that are positive. So, we kind of covered a few of those, like healthy ambition, healthy motivation, and stuff like that. But what are some other elements that, um, are positive when it comes down to being a perfectionist? Because obviously, again, people always talk about it in the framework of a negative, right? But if you had to kind of spin it and talk, I guess, about some of the positive elements, what would those be?
So I have to give you like my personal belief system is we're all trying to be a higher, better version of ourselves. That's
Hmm.
our goal. We're trying to be higher, better versions of ourselves. And that comes from comparison. And comparison is another reason why we try to develop certain perfectionistic standards. We end up learning some people are doing better than us. And so, during my day to day life, when I see and judge somebody as doing lesser than me or less than me, I realize I grew from there. I was once there, I grew from there. And when I judge somebody as doing better than me, it shows me a standard that I can acquire and become better in, meaning I'm learning how to be better from others I judge as better than me. So, really, our perfectionistic standards are constantly evolving and changing. We might have a high standard for ourselves, but at grade five, my high standard was different than, in my PhD level and is different as a professional in the field for 30 years. So, understanding that our definition of perfectionism alters and shifts, and learning to be fluid with our definition of what needs to be perfect and what I choose to be perfect with. And, what maybe I can also cut the corners with and let go as a standard. So, on a positive front, it is motivating. Anxiety keeps you awake. Anxiety keeps you, I'm going to have a standard I'm going to follow every day. And so that goal of like my perfect schedule is studying an hour every day, or at the end of the night doing a gratitude log, or doing meal prep on Sunday so my week's food is ready. Like, it's okay to have certain standards that make your life feel productive, healthy, and somewhat perfect. But like I said, if you have a cold, can you let it go without it causing anxiety? Can you let your standards down is what you want to always look at? Or are my standards causing me such extreme symptoms of anxiety, depression, stress that I need to work on getting healthier with my standards? Everything ever created started with a thought. So let's talk about perfectionism as thoughts. My TED talk was called Think About It. Thoughts are powerful things, good or bad. Everything out there started with a thought. Everything ever created started with a thought. And to recognize good or bad, your thoughts shape your life. Are your thoughts tied to perfectionism, shaping your life for the better or deteriorating your health and well being? That's for you to evaluate. But on a
Mm.
positive front, when I'm in a healthy state, I'm comparing myself to make a bucket list of who I'd like to be or a striving on a goal front that I can acquire these skills and become it. So, your perfectionism could be you fine tuning and polishing your skill set for you to feel more proud of yourself and love yourself more. You know, you can take a stock of your thoughts and see which ones are propelling me on a motivating front and which ones are depressing me, draining me, taking life away from me, and maybe putting so much pressure that I'm losing sleep and I'm ruminating at night of how I'm not good enough. It's important for us to start fine tuning what thoughts are propelling me and motivating me related to perfectionism and which ones are depleting and bringing me to a distressful, unhealthy state of mind and body. And so, our relationships are better sometimes with these perfectionism type of, and I don't like calling it perfect. It's not about perfect. It's about enhancing yourself, evolving to be a better version of you. Like I said, in grade 5, my definition of perfect was here. As I got into high school, it went a little bit further by the influences around me. But many of us
Mm.
make friends at our level and above. No, at our level and below. And so if you're striving to be better, you want to motivate yourself on social media and stuff to see people who are maybe acquiring the skills that make them better, but it also would motivate you to learn how to be better. So perfectionism helps us strive to be more than what we are, hopefully for you to be a higher, better version of you. But always keep in mind the downside is it makes you unhealthy, puts a lot of pressure, and can even get you suicidal where you just can't live
Mm.
up to the standards you've given yourself. And so it's important for us to see the downside of it because it's a slippery slope. We might motivate ourselves until we burn out and then crash. And it's important for us to challenge healthy and unhealthy behaviors. Life comes with duality, happiness and sorrow, perfectionism and lack of perfectionism. I think we need to realize that there's always two extremes in our behaviors, and it's okay for us to do this dance of in and out and try to find that middle ground that makes us feel comfortable. What's going to make you balanced? And so when you say the pro side is motivation. The pro side is goal development. The pro side is polishing yourself to be a better version of you by setting goals of polishing yourself on a skill set to feel more capable, to feel more resilient, to feel more accomplished if you want, or to feel more loving. Some of our perfectionism is because we like wrapping that gift with a bow because it makes us feel great giving someone a gift with a bow on it. However, if you don't have the bow and you have to run to 5 stores and you're wasting time and energy, was that perfectionism worth it? Was it worth that time and energy you put into it? Challenge yourself on what perfectionism is needed for me to really be successful in my life and healthy in my life, and what perfectionism is me just being stubborn that I need it this way because I feel anxious if I don't have that standard achieved. Make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is like, it really comes down to how you look at it, right? Because it can be either a negative or a positive. But obviously, what you're saying is, you can use it to kind of, drive like healthy inspiration, healthy motivation, healthy ambition. Just, like, who's Bruce Lee?
Yes.
Yeah. So he has a quote that goes something like, sometimes a goal is not really meant to be achieved. It's just meant to have something to aim at. Like that's what it kind of reminds me of when you're saying stuff like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's all about just how you look at it. Now, something else that you also mentioned is that social media is a big driver of unhealthy standards and perfectionism and stuff like that, right? That kind of leads on to one of the other things you mentioned in your article, which is like there was a study published in 2019, right? That kind of indicated that youth in countries like Canada, US, and Britain have like perfectionism on the rise. So basically, youth in like Western countries. Why do you think that is? Like, why is it climbing so rapidly recently in these Western countries?
So social media is glorifying and constantly identifying perfect standards. And so we're all seeking perfectionism because the media world is showing us how we can look better, we can feel better, we can be younger. And so, just
Mm-hmm.
enjoying a basic cheese sandwich is not enough. You got to make it a perfect grilled cheese sandwich. So there's this pressure, and we're ended up cracking under the pressure of wanting everything perfect and at that gold standard. As I like how you brought up Bruce Lee. Don't get me wrong, perfectionism also comes with a discipline. And so in
Yeah.
the Kung Fu movie, you talked about the wax on, wax off. You want to bring in these, martial arts and these disciplines that strengthen your body and your mind and patience levels. Some of our perfectionistic standards bring us a discipline that make our life efficient, bring in a discipline that make us proud of our work ethic, bring in the discipline that makes us also always know that if I do A plus B, I get to C as a result, meaning studying ethics. If I know this is the way I have to do it for me to get this result, some of those standards are invaluable on a skill set to teach you to have confidence to know I can get that A in school from that exam or an A on this paper if I follow this system. Our disciplines do come with a level of perfectionism, but however, a healthy person can realize that I can strive for a perfect standard, but do I need to have it? Today's perfectionism is coming from this I want it, but you're mistakenly thinking I need it. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
what you need is enough, not perfect. And so it's okay to have a standard, but learn also the standard shouldn't make you sacrifice your health, your well being, your mental health, your sleep, your food habits, your play. Our joy and pleasure and play is what gives us the energy to do the disciplines to even bring out a good work ethic. I like to say I have good work ethics, and I do probably have some perfectionistic standards. However, with or without those, I'm able to be happy with myself. People with extreme versions of perfectionism don't feel happy. They get anxious when they don't meet those standards. So try to always fine tune to recognize when is my perfectionism lethal and unhealthy versus just a healthy comparison on social media to look at what other people are doing and say, hey, this is a gold standard, but you know what? This is okay. This is good enough. Chasing perfectionism backfires on people because it gets them sick. It can lead to
Mm-hmm.
burnout. And as I mentioned earlier, you can get so bogged down by your anxiety and depression, it could lead you to suicidal thoughts because you're not happy with yourself. Our inner world creates our outer world. And sometimes we think success is only tied to perfectionism. True success comes with you being able to have a good work ethic and standard by implementing healthy standards of life. And so the discipline, is learning how to balance healthy living with high standards, not about sacrificing healthy living for high standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's that need to have it mentality that kind of drives everything, right? And obviously, the youth were kind of raised on screens, right? Like social media, TV, like we're raised on that, right? So because of that, you're kind of, I guess, driven to say, I have to have that, and if I'm not, going to achieve that, then I'm worthless. I'm not, I'm not worthy and stuff like that, which is pretty much the main messaging that I guess gets people to buy certain things that they don't even, want, right? It's just we all know that these like objects and stuff don't make people happy. It's just what they tell you. Oh, this will make you happy, but no, not really, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so obviously, our clock is slowly coming to an end here, but as you know, the whole idea is to kind of help people get out of this trap, as you call it. So if you were to give people a process or like a blueprint that they can follow to break out of that perfectionistic trap, what would that process be like? How would it look like? What should people do if they want to slowly get out of that?
Perfect. I'll give you a concrete process, but before I do that, I'm going to also just comment to what you just mentioned. You know,
No problem.
our inner world creates our outer world. And so when we buy into the social media that you need this, you need that, you need this to be successful, beautiful, popular, successful, accomplished, what we're doing is we're having external validate our internal. And so every time we're putting something outside of us as more important than ourselves on the inside, you will be constantly driven by people's standards that you feel like you have to meet in order to be good enough. And the truth is, again, what you need and what you want is about you going inwards and saying, do I really need this to feel good enough? Do I really need this to be smart enough? Do I really need this to be accomplished enough? It's about you going inwards. If you're looking outwards, you're going to buy that gimmick. You're going to buy that sparkly object. You're going to work really hard to accomplish. You're going to sacrifice sleep and everything because everybody in your office is doing it. If you're doing external validating internal, you will always be sick because you're disconnected from yourself on the inside. But when you go inwards, you realize, I don't need that shirt to look pretty. I don't need that job and overworking like everybody else is in order to be healthy. And you'll start creating a standard that works for you. Each and every one of us have a different balance of what is healthy for us. And sometimes, it's a means to a goal. I take it up a notch for a month or two and then I bring it down. But I got to go inwards and listen to my body, my symptoms, my health, my well-being. So for the rest of you who are not always going inwards and meditating or really working on how do I be a better version, and you're stuck on that rat race of the hamster on the wheel, go, 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 and are so stuck in that perfectionism thought that you need something to get off that, hamster on the wheel rat race. Mm-hmm. Well, I have a 7-step approach to help you break free from perfectionism. Number 1, take stock and inventory of your perfectionistic thoughts, behaviors, fears, and habits that all play in your life. Think about what I said earlier, mom and dad blueprints. Where do your thoughts come from? From them that maybe worked for you as a kid, but as an adult is not healthy for you. Take stock of the thoughts that you reinforce in your head. Your inner world creates your outer world, and your inner world encompasses the thoughts. Not just about work, but your whole world, relationships, sacrifice, guilt, people-pleasing, putting others ahead of me, sacrificing sleep, food habits, comfort food, alcohol and drugs, acceptance. Try to challenge the thoughts. Look at the thoughts that make you want to strive to be perfect in certain categories, including your relationships, wanting to be that perfect partner, perfect parent, perfect colleague, someone everybody likes. Are you doing things that are draining you from being authentic and real? Number 2, very important, get aware. Acknowledge that the first step to treatment for yourself is to be aware of your symptoms and your life. Identify that the only way I'm going to change is by slowing down and recognizing, when do I spend a lot of time on people pleasing? When do I spend a lot of time on making things perfect? When do I spend a lot of time on sacrificing things for health to get something perfect? Number 3, identify the areas in your life that you struggle with that are related to fear, anxiety, self-doubt, where you're being really harsh on yourself, judging yourself that you're not perfect enough. C, I'm not perfect enough in my looks. I'm not perfect enough in my weight. I'm not perfect enough in my work ethic. I'm not perfect enough in my sales. I'm not perfect enough as a daughter-in-law, sister, friend, parent, partner. Try to look at all those areas that you struggle because you worry about not being lovable, not being good enough, not feeling capable of making people happy in these roles if you're not perfect. Number 4, exercise self-compassion. Be kind to yourselves. If you have children, you'll realize that we're so loving and kind and unconditionally loving to our kids, but we have these heavy-duty standards on ourselves. How are you role modeling to your kids unconditional love if you can't do it to yourselves? Be compassionate with yourself. Explore where your negative thoughts come from kindly. Notice self-limiting beliefs and narratives and stories that you have of what success looks like, what good enough is enough. Notice your skills, your abilities, your attributes. Try to see what you have, then always looking at what you lack. And it's hard for us to, allow ourselves to just be authentic, but try to notice what are some areas of my life I can cut down the standards and be happy enough in who I am. And try to look at the child version of you. Do I bring in play? Do I bring in peaceful activities? Do I just sit and like allow myself to rest instead of constantly doing to be perfect? Number 5, challenge your perfectionistic concerns. Challenge and reframe long-standing negative thoughts and self-limiting core beliefs that lead to self-doubt, shame, blame, and guilt, low self-esteem, feelings of inadequacy. When you challenge these negative thoughts, you'll see how long you've been, kind of at the disposal of them. Replace negative thoughts with more adaptive ones. Life is always about replacing one thought with the other. Replacing the negative, pressure-filled, looking for validation and not feeling good enough thoughts with more adaptive thoughts of I'm good enough, I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I'm compassionate. Learn to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. 6, set more realistic, healthy, and good enough goals. It doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be good enough. You can strive to know what perfection looks like, but be kind enough to be okay with good enough and getting through and delivering and moving forward. Set reasonable boundaries around your time and your energy. Our resources of energy are limited. We don't always have a lot of energy. We need to learn how to be very selective on where we put our time and energy. Trying to make something perfect sometimes it is a waste of energy. And adjust your expectations on yourself and others so that you're not holding people to high standards, which means then you're holding yourself to high standards. I always believe there's a mirror. What we do to others, if we're holding people to perfect standards, we're also holding ourselves to it. There's always a mirror. So recognize that where am I doing it to others? And maybe I'm being hard on myself and I'm hard on others. Let me lower that down to adjust my expectations from others and expectations of myself. And number 7, seek the help of a mental health professional if you're having a hard time slowing your mind down from that chatter, that perfectionistic standard, or those overwhelming symptoms of anxiety that come with lowering your standards or feeling not good enough by, filling all these buckets. Learn to get help because we do the best we can with what we know. And sometimes bringing in professionals shows you a mirror of how to know how to do things better. Our parents do well, but sometimes you need to learn from other professionals at other levels to really bring you to a place of change. Learn that on your own, you can only take yourself so far. That's why self-help only is self-help. But when you have somebody to challenge yourself and to show you a mirror of what you're doing and the games you play with yourself to keep rationalizing bad behaviors and rationalizing perfectionism as healthy, when somebody shows you the truth of what costs are coming from that perfectionistic standards, you realize it's time to let go of that standard and bring in health, well-being, self-love, and compassion. And that's my 7 steps.
Yeah, that's legendary. I mean, for most people, obviously, like this will require some quiet time, right? Because obviously, like you have to like sit by yourself and not be stimulated by all kinds of other things, right? Because I guess that's what really takes people away from that. And then you're mentioning that if you're struggling with that, you can also work with someone to help you move through that process, right? Instead of, I guess, trying to do it all by yourself. Again, it's going to come down to each individual, right? And then based off of how you're feeling, you can kind of work off that. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Shaq, what's important to realize is even if you don't make the quiet time, I am fascinated by life to tell you, as a therapist, all human suffering is a catalyst for change. When you ignore your symptoms and you ignore the suffering that comes with an unhealthy lifestyle or an unhealthy standard of perfectionism, what you will find is your symptoms, physical, negative thoughts, and negative behaviors get louder and louder and louder till one day you have no choice but to deal with it. So when your symptoms are really loud and you feel like you're in crises or you're having anxiety every day or you can't sleep or your relationships are suffering or people want to leave you now and your children don't want to talk to you, when your anxiety and your symptoms are so loud because you're living unhealthy, you're forced to pause and reflect and work on yourself in order to better life. So I feel like even if you don't want to slow down, at some point, your symptoms will get you to a place where you have to slow down and change and conceptualize and reconceptualize what is working and what isn't working, and how do I change to be a better version of me at this point. Like I said, some of our perfectionistic standards at one age work for us to motivate us through school, motivate us to
Yeah.
get that job or prepare for that interview. And you might have even pulled an all nighter and sacrificed sleep and food. But when you do that repeatedly, that chronic stress on your body, if it turns into a lifestyle, at some point your body will rebel and you will have
Yep.
symptoms saying you are on the wrong path. Get back inside, slow down, bring in joy, bring in rest, and reconceptualize what your concepts of health is. When you do that, you will get healthier. And so we'll go inwards, whether we're forced to do it or we choose to do it. So why not choose to do it?
100%. 100%. Well, Dr. Vermani, thank you so much for this great episode. It's obviously full of insight. I will also apply this to my life because, to be honest, I have, quite a bit of, perfectionist type tendencies. So your work has actually helped me to kind of, obviously not completely drop the standard, but to be a little bit more loose with, I guess, not trying to be too perfect, right? Because as we just spoke about, it can, work in reverse and actually take you away from moving forward. So this was great. But yeah, if people want to go and find your work and look at more of what you do, where would you go and tell them to go?
So the first thing is you can go to my website, drmonicavermani.com. And I'm also a regular columnist on Psychology Today. You can find me there, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all your social media channels. I have a monthly newsletter. If you go on my website, sign up, you'll get all the latest articles and the podcasts I do, TV, as well as radio. And also free of charge, you'll get the newsletter. And starting next month, I'll have a podcast called The Deeper Podcast, and my book's The Deeper Wellness.
That's great.
So enjoy some of these wonderful resources. To me,
Yeah.
we're all here to be a higher, better version of ourselves. So pause and reflect and try to love yourself through this process so that you like your life.
Absolutely. If you send me all those links, I'll put it down below, and people can definitely go and check it out if need be.
Thank you.
Okay, then. No problem. No problem. Thank you so much. Hey, this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You too. And remember, everybody, don't give from an empty well, give from your overflow. If you feel always overwhelmed and stressed out by the standards you're living by, that means you're not taking care of yourself. So fill up your well, and then you can give from a place of overflow instead of from empty. Whenever you're giving from empty, you'll feel overwhelmed.
Definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Vermani. This was great. Thank you so much. Bye.